An emperor, only a few years on the throne, loses the minister who gave him the most headaches. He writes the funeral oration himself and says beside the coffin, "I have lost a mirror." The man's name was Wei Zheng. While he lived, he dared to talk back to the emperor in open court. After he died, the whole court wondered, without Wei Zheng, would the emperor still listen to the truth? That story lives inside the Essentials of Government in the Zhenguan Reign, the Zhenguan Zhangyao. And tonight, we are going to read it together. Good evening, this is Bedside Book Voice. Tonight we are reading the Essentials of Government in the Zhenguan Reign. If you're already lying down, dim the lamp a little. Put the phone farther away. Pull the blanket up. This book is not a novel. It's a collection of governing notes compiled by the Tang official Wei Zheng, recording how Emperor Taizong of Tang Li Shimin spoke, chose people, and applied the brakes inside power. Our reading list calls it Emperor Taizong's management course, accepting remonstrance, using talent, and self-restraint. That's how we'll read it tonight. You don't need to memorize chapter titles or finish the whole book. Just follow my voice. Hear how one emperor made listening to advice and putting the right people in place his daily work. Fall asleep halfway? Wei Zheng will not mind. Neither will I. So let me set the rules first. Nothing to memorize, nothing you must fully grasp, no notes. What you're taking away are a few images that stick. Wei Zheng, face stern, speaking in court while Li Shimin wants to flare up and swallows it instead. Fang Xuanling thinking things through, Ruhui cutting decisions fast, the two of them paired like one mind. The emperor flipping memorials at night and telling those beside him, "The people suffer, I dare not rest easy." Some images come from the chapters on accepting remonstrance, on employing the worthy, and on governance. Put together, you'll feel, reading the Zhenguan Zhangyao is not only reading the name of a golden age, it is reading how power needs a mirror beside it. As for why that emperor who lost his mirror still kept Wei Zheng's words for a lifetime, that stays beside your pillow until halfway through tonight, when we return to it. First, meet the book and its author. Wei Zheng was a man of the Tang Dynasty, born around 679 CE, died around 749 CE. He served under Emperor Xuanzong, rose to left cavalier attendant in ordinary, and helped compile the national history. He lived at the tail end of the Kaiyuan Golden Age and saw with his own eyes the first signs that Tang was turning from peak toward decline. In his mind he often returned to the stories of Taizong's court, a century before. Taizong Li Shimin took the throne in 626 CE, reign title Zhenguan, 23 years on the throne, the age historians call the Zhenguan Reign. Wei Zheng was not a man of the Zhenguan years, but he read old archives, questioned elders, and pulled out dialogues, memorials, and edicts between the emperor and his ministers, arranging them into 10 scrolls called the Essentials of Government in the Zhenguan Reign. The book was compiled around the Kaiyuan era of Emperor Xuanzong, roughly 70 or 80 years after Zhenguan. Why would someone still want to compile it so long afterward? Because Wei Zheng believed Taizong's way of governing should not die with the man, it should remain for later readers. The 10 scrolls are roughly titled, The Way of the Ruler, Political Structure, Employing the Worthy, Seeking Remonstrance, Accepting Remonstrance, Selecting Officials, On Governance, On Criminal Law, On the Examination System, and On Corvée and Military Service. You don't need to memorize those titles tonight. Just know, the book begins with how an emperor should behave and moves through how to choose people, hear opinions, pass judgment, and bother the common people less. Each scroll is mostly dialogue between emperor and ministers, like very old meeting minutes, yet the people feel alive when you read them. The Zhenguan Zhangyao had enormous influence across East Asia. Rulers in ancient Japan and Korea read it. Later in China, when people said Zhenguan, they often thought first of this book, then of Taizong himself. You don't need to treat it as a word-for-word historical recording Wei Zheng chose, arranged, and sometimes summarized. Yet the big direction, the big stories, the big principles align with the old Book of Tang and the new Book of Tang. Legend and fact must be kept apart. Details like Taizong angry at Wei Zheng and later restoring his steel appear in the histories. Jing writes them more fully. Some dialogues are the historian's distilled meaning, not necessarily the exact words spoken that day. Tonight we follow the spirit of the book, without pretending every line is a live transcript. One story circulates widely. In his later years, Taizong grew angry at Wei Zheng and knocked down his memorial stele. Then campaigns against Goguryeo went badly, and he remembered Wei Zheng's warnings and ordered the stele rebuilt. Details differ slightly among histories, no need to quarrel over every word, but the emotional line is real. People often remember the advice they would not hear only after they hit a wall. Jing, compiling the chapter on accepting remonstrance, wrote that regret into the book too, telling later readers, even Taizong regretted not listening more. Ordinary people should leave themselves room as well. Why was Taizong worth a lifetime of Wu Jing's attention? Put him back before the throne. Li Shimin was the second son of Tang founder Li Yuan. He took up arms young, joined his father at 18 to conquer the realm. When Tang was founded, his merit was enormous. He held the title Prince of Qin and gathered talent around him. Yet the crown prince was Li Jiancheng. Merit and legitimacy sat on the prince's side. The brothers fought for power. In 626 came the Xuanwu Gate incident, recorded clearly in history as a bloody political resolution, not a story we need to unfold tonight like a thriller. After Taizong took the throne, he faced a realm just settled, households not yet restored, Turks pressing the border, and hearts inside the court still unsettled among those who had followed the former crown prince. If he had known only how to kill and intimidate, Zhenguan would never have formed. He chose a harder road, institutions, people, and accepting remonstrance, to turn a new ruler into a bright ruler. In the scroll The Way of the Ruler, Taizong talks with ministers about what it means to be emperor. He says, the ruler must first preserve the people. If he harms the people to feed himself, cutting flesh to fill his belly, the belly may be full but the body will die. In plain speech, an emperor can't grow fat while the people grow thin. The realm will not last that way. He also says, water can carry the boat, and water can overturn it. Close your eyes and you feel a sober clarity. Power is not a sheet of iron. It's the water holding you up. Turn the water, and the boat is gone. These words later became part of the deep vocabulary of Chinese political thought. Reading the Zhenguan Zhangyao, remember first, Taizong's brightness was not born saintly. It was a choice made after loss, after chaos, after he was willing to name danger aloud. In the same scroll, Taizong discusses self-cultivation. He says, in all things one must hold to the root. The state takes the people as root, and people take food and clothing as root. He also warns, when the ruler considers himself wise, ministers dare not speak. That line is like a needle in the most comfortable place power enjoys. The more you feel brilliant, the more you must guard against silence around you. Lying in bed, you might translate that sentence into plain speech. If the boss always thinks he is right, the meeting room grows quieter. Quiet is not always agreement. Sometimes it is fear. Next comes the most famous thread in the whole book, accepting remonstrance. Wei Zheng, courtesy named Xuanzong, had served Crown Prince Li Jiancheng. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Taizong did not kill him, he employed him. History records Wei Zheng as one who remonstrated to the emperor's face, daring to say what the emperor did not want to hear in open court. The scroll on accepting remonstrance records many such scenes. Once Taizong issued an edict to rebuild the Qianyuan Hall in Luoyang, large-scale construction. Zhang Xuansu submitted a memorial in opposition, speaking harshly, even suggesting Taizong might be copying Emperor Yang of Sui. Taizong flew into a rage and summoned Zhang Xuansu to answer for it. Zhang Xuansu was not afraid and kept pushing back. Taizong was furious, almost ready to kill him. Wei Zheng said at his side, "If your majesty kills Zhang Xuansu, people everywhere will say you can't tolerate straight speech."
Taizong paused, did not kill him, and even rewarded Zheng Xuansu. Another time Taizong went hunting with pleasure.
Wei Zheng stepped in front of the carriage to remonstrate.
Taizong said, "Keep your voice down, you are scaring the birds away." Wei Zheng said, "I am stopping your majesty's horse, not the birds."
Read that exchange aloud and you feel two people testing each other, testing whether the emperor can endure, testing whether the minister dares to go all the way.
Taizong was not always pleased.
History records him once leaving court and telling Empress Xuanzong, "One day I will kill that country bumpkin." The empress put on court dress and congratulated him, saying only a bright ruler gets a straight minister. Wei Zheng dares to remonstrate because your majesty is bright.
Taizong's anger cooled.
Later tellings mix truth and embroidery, but the spirit holds. You need someone beside you who dares to say no, and the emperor must leave himself a step down from anger. Taizong himself said a famous line, "Use bronze as a mirror to straighten your dress, use history as a mirror to know rise and fall, use people as a mirror to see gain and loss." When Wei Zheng died, Taizong wept at the funeral and said, "I have lost a mirror." You don't need to memorize the original. Just feel, in Taizong's mind Wei Zheng was not a hated opponent but someone who helped him see his face straight. Accepting remonstrance was not a moral slogan for him, it was a governing tool. If no one dares speak truth, the emperor lives inside an information bubble, today a palace, tomorrow corvée, the day after he no longer knows he is wrong. The year Wei Zheng died, Taizong also said, "One day without holding court is still a loss, 3 days without court and the ruler tilts the state." He tied attending court and hearing policy to national safety. He also issued an edict, "Those who speak shall not be punished for speaking, those who hear shall take warning." One line binds ministers, one binds the ruler, together they close the loop of remonstrance. If you lead people, you might ask, do I truly leave speakers unpunished, or do I welcome words with my mouth and keep a ledger in my heart? The scroll on seeking remonstrance records how Taizong tried to make people speak. He deliberately asked at court, "Are you watching my face when you talk?" The ministers fell silent. Taizong said, "If you don't speak, how will I know right from wrong?" He also ordered that officials of 5th rank and above in the capital and the remonstrance officials could enter the palace to report matters and submit sealed memorials without restriction. Meaning, don't only behave in the hall, private notes are welcome too. Read here and you feel institutional design. Accepting remonstrance is not only good temper, it requires open channels. If nothing can be delivered inward, the widest chest accomplishes nothing. Another man walked the same road as Wei Zheng with a different temper, Wang Kublai. Taizong once asked him, "How do you judge people?" Wang Kublai said, "I look only at achievement in office, not closeness or distance." Taizong had him discuss the strengths and weaknesses of court ministers together with Wei Zheng, Fang Xuanling, and others, each speaking, Taizong listening like an internal review meeting. Such scenes appear often in the Zhenguan Reign. The emperor did not listen to one voice alone. He let several voices supplement and even challenge each other. If you lead a team and only one person dares speak, that is often not enough. You need several perspectives on the table. The boss makes the final call, but before the call, the information must be enough. Dai Zhou and Xiaoyu also appear often in the remonstrance chapters. Dai Zhou oversaw the Ministry of Justice, strict without cruelty. Xiaoyu was older and sometimes talked back harder than Wei Zheng. Taizong once dismissed him, then recalled him, saying, "Xiaoyu is a remonstrance official, if I dislike him, who else will dare speak?" That pattern of quarreling hard and still returning showed the whole court, remonstrance ministers are not disposable chopsticks. The emperor wanted people who tell truth over the long term. Read the histories and you see Taizong also had moments he could not bear it. Yet broadly he made the straight minister a predictable role, speaking truth had risk, but you were not likely to lose your head at every turn. That's why people were willing to open their mouths. If you are still awake, a small favor, if something moved you tonight, give the video a like and subscribe to Bedside Book Voice.
Turn on the notification bell if you like. No need to comment now, tea tomorrow morning is fine. We continue.
Here comes the next hook. Having people brave enough to speak is not enough, you also need people who can get things done.
The Jingwan court had a famous pair historians call Fang's planning, Du's deciding.
Fang Xuanling, given name Chao, courtesy name Xuanling, was good at planning, fine thought, able to break complex situations apart. Du Ruhui, courtesy name Ruhui, was good at deciding, quick judgment without dragging. Taizong said, Xuanling forms the plan, Ruhui makes the cut, a match made in heaven. Working together they helped Taizong run the 3 departments and 6 ministries so business did not pile on the emperor's desk alone. The scroll on employing the worthy records many stories about using people.
Taizong once discussed bows and said, my bows are good, yet I don't know their names.
He discussed generals and said, I have many, yet I don't know who is most fit.
A minister said, Your Majesty uses people as you use bows, each material to its task. Taizong also spoke of selecting officials. I look first at whether a man can handle affairs, then at family background. That was advanced for its time.
Since the Wei Zheng period, great clans weighed heavily.
Taizong deliberately pushed against judging only by birth.
Whether he achieved full fairness, later ages debate, but in word and institution he pushed merit forward.
Ma Zhou is a story often told.
Born in humble circumstances, living in the capital as a guest, he once asked the official Chang He to submit a memorial on his behalf. Taizong saw the writing was excellent, asked who wrote it, and Chang He named Ma Zhou. Taizong summoned him at once, made him investigating censor, and later he rose to head of the secretariat.
Such stories match between the Jingwan Zhangyao and the Old Book of Tang, showing that Jingwan's selection did not look only at pedigree but also at whether one memorial could move the emperor.
You don't need to treat every humble origin story as universal reality. Clan power still existed. Yet Taizong was willing to open a crack for the unknown, and Wu Jing deliberately widened that crack for later readers. If an emperor wants talent, the channel must be wide.
Zheng Sun Wuji, Chu Suiliang, Yao Silian, Yu Shinan. The scroll on employing the worthy lists many names you don't need to memorize tonight. Just feel, Jingwan was not one man's brilliance alone.
It was a net. Some dared remonstrate, some planned well, some decided fast, some compiled history, some ordered ritual. The emperor's job was not to be genius at everything but to put the right people in the right places and hear them argue and complement each other.
If you lead by day, ask, do I have someone who dares tell me what I don't want to hear, and also a pair who can think it through and cut the decision?
In the 10th year of Jingwan, Taizong ordered Yan Liban to paint the 24 meritorious ministers at Lingnan Pavilion, Fang Xuanling, Du Ruhui, Wei Zheng, Zheng Sun Wuji among them.
The portraits were not simple praise.
They showed the court who the emperor remembered. Wei Zheng was the remonstrance minister, Fang and Du were planning ministers, military men like Li Jing and Yuqi Jingda stood there too, showing that Jingwan used both civil remonstrance and military merit, each with its path. Reading on employing the worthy, you don't need to memorize all 24 names. Just feel, an age is remembered because a group stood on stage together, not because the emperor fought alone. The scroll on political structure discusses how the court ran.
The 3 departments and 6 ministries had already taken shape in Jingwan. The secretariat drafted edicts, the chancellery reviewed and could remonstrate or return them, the Department of State Affairs executed. That chancellery power to seal and return was crucial. If an edict was wrong, they could send it back. Taizong respected the procedure.
Reading the Jingwan Zhangyao, you feel, good structure catches error before it leaves the gate, not relying on the emperor alone to stay clear-headed.
At night, thinking about your own workplace, ask, is there a required review or does the loudest voice decide? Once Taizong told Fang Xuanling, you head the secretariat.
If something is wrong, you should seal and return it, don't simply agree. Fang answered, my duty is to carry out, I dare not raise objection lightly.
Taizong said, "No.
I failed in choosing people, you ministers should correct me." That was public authorization. Ministers must not only speak pleasantly, they should send back what should be sent back. Reading on political structure, you find Zhenguan was not only an open-minded emperor but a procedure allowed to say unpleasant things. The chancellery gate was a buffer between emperor and the ministries.
In the scroll on governance, Taizong and ministers discuss lenient rule and simple rule.
He said, "Since I took the throne, I have worked to stop wickedness and care for widows and orphans. My conduct is deeply wary of men and spirits. In plain speech, sitting in this seat, I fear not only people but conscience and heaven." They also discuss corvée and say, if the people are unsettled, the altars of soil and grain are unsettled. Early Zhenguan edicts lightened tax and corvée, released palace women, reduced construction, standing in sharp contrast to late sway under Emperor Yang, with endless building and war.
Historians describing the Zhenguan reign often cite restored households and full granaries.
The Zhenguan Zhangyao shows what lay behind those results, the emperor saying again and again, less trouble, still less trouble.
Early Zhenguan, registered households in the realm were under 3 million.
By the 13th year of Zhenguan, history's record more than 4 million households restored, fields open wide, grain prices steady, the people breathing after Sway's chaotic end.
You don't need to memorize the numbers. Just feel. Good rule is not an adjective. It's less corvée, less war, giving farming time to grow. Taizong discussed agriculture with ministers and said, the state takes the people as root, people take food as root.
He sent inspectors through prefectures and counties to see whether officials were harassing the people. Reading on governance is mostly hearing how the emperor moved the word people from slogan to inspection, to amnesty, to building fewer palaces.
The Turks were a major northern problem in Zhenguan. Early in Taizong's reign, Jieli Khan pressed to the Wei River. Taizong went to the Wei Bridge in person and made a treaty under the walls, a moment of crisis.
Years later, through division, military action, and settling surrendered peoples, northern pressure eased. The book records his discussion of frontier peoples, saying they can be managed but must not be indulged without limit. That language sounds harsh today. In its time it was frontier realism.
The point is balance between control and release, not naive peace overnight.
Reading on corvée and military service and related frontier passages, you feel, Zhenguan did not avoid war, it calculated war and afterward asked how to keep inland farming households from being dragged under. The scroll on criminal law discusses cautious punishment. Taizong said, the dead can't live again. The punished can't be restored, though you wish to regret, it is too late. Meaning, kill wrongly and life doesn't return, so judgment must be careful.
He also cited Emperor Wen of Han on lighter punishment. You don't need to treat this as a modern rule of law lecture.
Just feel, 1300 years ago an emperor reminded himself and his officials, violence is convenient, regret is hard. The famous minister Zhang Zhouling was not yet born, but the threat of cautious punishment was already laid in early Tang, and later law codes connect to that attitude. The book also records Taizong ordering, whenever there might be wrongful imprisonment, cases must be reviewed again, no careless taking of life. Daizhou enforced the law and sometimes disagreed with Taizong, yet Taizong kept using him because he knew, harsh law builds up quickly, but too many wrong cases scatter hearts. Lying awake, you might think of cautious punishment as a kind of slowness, not refusing punishment, but before punishment asking once more whether evidence is enough, whether another path exists.
That's not the same as modern procedural justice, but the sentence kill wrongly and life doesn't return holds in any age.
The scroll on the examination system discusses choosing people through exams.
Taizong cared how talented people from humble backgrounds could rise without examiners playing favorites. He said, all heroes under heaven enter my net, that line is famous.
Some read it as pride, some as hunger for talent. In the context of the Zhenguan Zhangyao, he seems to be discussing with ministers, the selection system is the throat of the state, block the throat and talent can't rise. You don't need to study the full history of the civil exam tonight. Just remember, in Jingwan dialogue, selecting officials sits on the same board as accepting remonstrance and employing the worthy. The emperor alone can't see everything, institutions must supplement his eyes. The scroll on corvée and military service discusses war and labor.
Taizong was not without martial spirit, he fought many battles young.
After taking the throne, he was cautious about large-scale mobilization. Ministers remonstrated against campaigns against Goguryeo, he wavered and sometimes held back. The book records his discussions of Turks and frontiers, often returning to one core: war is the last resort, calculate the burden on the people clearly. Reading the Zhenguan Zhengyao, you feel, a golden age is not an emperor winning a few more battles, it is mostly knowing when to stop.
In later Zhenguan, Taizong debated campaigns against Goguryeo. Opposition in court was loud.
Wei Zheng had remonstrated while he lived. Taizong's later years saw several military efforts with heavy cost. Historians criticize this. Wu Jing did not fully whitewash it. That makes the book more trustworthy. Even the best ruler-minister team grows old, grows impulsive, tests boundaries.
We read the Zhenguan Zhengyao to learn how they usually applied the brakes, not to learn that emperors never err. If you manage people, read here and gently ask, in smooth times, am I adding another Goguryeo campaign to the list? Taizong was not perfect.
Histories say he had luxurious impulses in later years. Wei Zheng, Zhang Xuansu, and others blocked him often. Wu Jing did not write him as a god who never failed but as a man who failed, was remonstrated with, grew angry, reflected, and sometimes reversed himself. That portrait is more believable and more useful for modern readers. Management lessons are never saint templates, they are how to set brakes under power.
One thread binds Taizong tightly to self-restraint.
He loved archery and horsemanship, Wei Zheng remonstrated.
He wanted to visit Luoyang, Zheng Xuanzu and others remonstrated. He wanted to build halls, memorials flew in.
Taizong did not always obey at once, but he built a habit of listening. After anger passed, he often rewarded remonstrance ministers and took his own words back. That habit is harder than obeying once or twice. If you lead, ask, the last time someone opposed me to my face, did I explode, or could I still speak with that person afterward? Why did Wu Jing compile this book more than a century later? In the Kaiyuan era, Emperor Xuanzong worked hard early and showed signs of slackening later. Wu Jing used the Zhenguan Zhengyao to remind the present court, Taizong's good rule was not fate, it was rules the ruler and ministers held together. The book later became one of the emperor's textbooks and was also criticized. Some said it idealized Zhenguan and simplified complex politics. Simplification is not the same as falsehood. Accepting remonstrance, employing the worthy, light corvée, cautious punishment, these directions leave traces in Zhenguan archives. Read the book as an old mirror reflecting how power should be constrained, not as proof that Tang had no contradictions. Wu Jing himself was a careful historian. He helped compile the national history and the annals of the Kaiyuan reign. He did not invent the Zhenguan Zhengyao from air, he excerpted from national history and old archives. In the 5th year of Kaiyuan, the book was presented to the throne and spread quickly. Imagine a historiographer at the tail of a golden age looking back at Taizong, thinking, then ruler and ministers could still speak this way, can we now? That used the past to warn the present intent gives the book extra weight. You might ask yourself, do I have my own essentials of government principles I would write down and reread in proud moments? If this is your first time with a ruler's book, you may fear dryness. For bedtime listening, hold a few threads. First, Taizong was willing to hear unpleasant words. Second, he had Wei Zheng, Fang, and Du around him. Third, he repeated that the people matter, punishment must be cautious, corvée must be light. Fourth, institutions included the 3 departments, Silan return review, and debate over selection.
Those four threads woven together are what Zhenguan Zhangyao means, the essentials of governing in the Zhenguan years.
If you want to open the original later, I suggest 3 scrolls to start: on accepting remonstrance for conflict, on employing the worthy for team, the way of the ruler for bottom lines. You don't need to read all 10 scrolls at once. 1 scroll before sleep is like hearing one dynasty's internal meeting record. Wu Jing's prose is plain, not flashy. The good part is that he doesn't steal the stage. The drama is in Taizong and the minister's mouths, in the back and forth of Your Majesty thinks and minister thinks. Close your eyes with our version tonight and you already have an entrance. Later when you open the book, the people will match. 2 more details to stand the figures up. Yu Shinan was learned, often beside Taizong, remonstrating with gentle manner. Yao Xilian came from a family of historians. Taizong ordered him to write the books of Liang and Shan, connecting the historian's brush to governing. Chu Suilian later became famous for integrity and was already in politics late in Jingguan. These men differ from Wei Zheng. They did not always clash daily, but all sit on the list of the employed. Jingguan did not want one temper only. It wanted many talents and many personalities around one table. Ministers like Sun Text and Lu Ji appear often in the Zhenguan Zhangyao. Sun Text was skilled with language and handled edicts. Lu Ji later rose to chief minister and spoke boldly. Beside Taizong sat a small think tank, some good at writing, some at remonstrance, some at deciding. You don't need to memorize every name. Just feel, the Zhenguan Reign was the result of many people present at once. One brilliant person can't replace the whole table. That is the lesson on employing the worthy most wants later readers to learn, more practical than memorizing any single famous line. Wei Zheng himself has many memorials in the Zhenguan Zhangyao. His 10 reflections urge Taizong to think of danger in peace, guard against pride and luxury, employ the worthy, choose good, reduce tax and lighten corvée. You don't need to memorize the full 10 reflections. Hear the meaning: when times are good, think harder about when they are not. That applies to companies, teams, and personal life. The easiest time to forget where risk enters is when days run smooth. One line from the 10 reflections: when you see something desirable, think whether you have enough and restrain yourself. When you are about to act on a large project, think whether to stop so the people may rest. Wei Zheng wrote these not as moral homework but as reminders to an emperor already beginning to expand, to play, to build. Taizong read them, praised them, did not always follow every time, but he kept the memorials, discussed them in court. That already differed from the Sui era when remonstrance was offered and ignored. Reading the Zhenguan Zhangyao, the most valuable moments are often these, when the emperor was willing to be reminded. Taizong and Wei Zheng had a famous dialogue about Emperor Yang of Sui. Taizong asked, Yang of Sui had both civil and military talent, why did the state fall? Wei Zheng said, the people rebelled, not suddenly, but because Yang lost the way. Taizong asked, Emperor Wen of Sui was frugal, why did his descendants fail? Wei Zheng said, Wen did not grasp the greater righteousness. Though frugal, his heart was not clear. The descendants were worse. Read that exchange like a lesson in plain speech. Frugality alone is not enough, the heart must be right. Personal cleverness alone is not enough, there must be justice toward the people. Taizong loved such analysis because he wanted not flattery but warning from the chariot ahead. The Zhenguan Zhangyao also discusses selecting officials. Taizong said, offices don't need to all be filled, only talent should fit. If the ruler uses the wrong talent, chaos follows. He also said, see good and move toward it, have fault and change, don't protect your own weakness. He was teaching himself and ministers, as officials, don't hide flaws or resent the able. Lying awake you might gently ask at work, when I see someone else's strength, do I learn or do I sour? On using people Taizong also said, the gentleman uses people as vessels, each takes its strength. Fang Xuanling planned much, Du Ruhui decided fast.
Taizong never forced Fang to decide like a genius on the spot, nor to draft plans like a genius scribe.
For ordinary people leading projects, the hardest part is sometimes not finding people but wanting one all-round genius. The Zhenguan answer is the opposite: admit no one has every talent, let another person cover the shortboard.
Tomorrow in a meeting you might ask, am I forcing a Fang Xuanling to be a Ruhui?
One passage records Taizong's own account: at 18 I was a general, at 24 I became emperor, more than 20 years since. I dare not call it full peace, but something like modest well-being. Modest well-being was not boasting, it was a scale he set for himself, not yet time to lie flat.
In the 23rd year of Zhenguan, Taizong fell ill. Crown Prince Li Ji attended him. Soon the emperor died, age 52. Golden ages also end.
Yet the Zhenguan Zhangyao preserved the dialogues of that time, so later readers can still open it at night and hear one emperor discuss the realm with his ministers. Later readers took different things from the book: some learned remonstrance, some learned employing people, some only memorized famous lines for display.
The truly useful reading treats it as a checklist for constraining power. Do I have channels for truth? Do I put the right people in the right places? In proud moments, do I think of the people? When applying punishment, do I think of regret?
Wu Jing probably meant something like that too. Golden ages pass, but if words remain, later people may save a little trouble. Song Dynasty's Sima Guang compiled the comprehensive mirror for aid in government. The Tang portion draws heavily on the old book of Tang and the ministerial discussions in the Zhenguan Zhangyao.
Kublai Khan in the Yuan ordered the book translated.
Ming and Cheng princes often listed it among their study books. It lived more than 1,000 years, not because of literary flourish but because the questions never expired: how those above stay undeaf, how those below dare speak, how institutions in the middle don't become decoration. Lying in bed tonight, you don't need to vow to become a historian. Just admit, these questions still live in bedrooms and offices. If you hear the Zhenguan Zhangyao as a management book, 3 words are worth keeping. First, listen widely. Taizong listened to Wei Zheng, Wangui, Fang, and do not expecting one person to be always right. Second, know when to stop: palaces, hunting, corvée, know when to halt.
Third, review, often citing Sui and Han stories, not showing off learning but seeing where the cart ahead overturned.
Those 3 words belong not only to emperors but to anyone holding power or resources.
You don't need to deify Taizong. Place those 3 words beside one decision you must make tomorrow and ask, did I listen widely? Do I know where to stop? Did I look at pits others already fell into?
After the Xuanwu Gate, Taizong did not purge everyone who had served the former crown prince.
Wei Zheng, Wangui, and others from the Eastern Palace entered the core.
That move was risky but sent a signal: the past is past, whoever can help the state may stand up. Of course, Zhenguan was not without political struggle.
Zhengsun Woji later held heavy weight. Cases involving Chu Suiliang and Fan Yai erupted after Taizong's death, that is later water.
Wu Jing mainly took the light of ruler and ministers governing together while Taizong lived.
That doesn't mean Tang had no undercurrents.
Read with clear eyes, learn the workable parts of remonstrance and employing the worthy. Don't imagine Zhenguan had no factions or private interest. Compared with the records of the Grand Historian or the Book of Han, the Zhenguan Zhangyao is not biographical history, it is a thematic collection on governance. Compared with the comprehensive mirror, it is earlier and narrower, focused only on Zhenguan.
You don't need to rank it among the 24 histories.
Just know, in Chinese political memory a large part of the weight of the word Zhenguan was carried for later ages by Wu Jing's book. From Japan's Heian period onward, officials reading Chinese classics often read the Zhenguan Zhangyao.
Korea's Joseon Dynasty also took it as a reference for the way of rule.
A book living across borders that long relies not on literary beauty but on asking the right questions: how an emperor should behave, how ministers should remonstrate, how the realm may rest secure.
If you remember only one sentence tonight, I suggest use people as a mirror. That doesn't mean you must find a Wei Zheng.
It means leave in your life someone willing to show you your short sight, a friend, colleague, family member. Taizong had Wei Zheng and therefore avoided many foolish decisions.
Do you have a mirror that decides whether you drift when proud?
That sentence and the ruler-minister lesson 1300 years ago are really the same sentence. One more layer, the mirror is not only a person, it can also be a record. Jing compiled the Zhenguan Reign by writing down dialogues between Taizong and ministers, leaving a mirror for later readers.
The stories you heard tonight, you may not remember them all tomorrow. That's fine. Remember, someone dared to say no and someone was willing to listen.
Later, when you open the original book, it will be like pushing a door you have seen before. Behind it is the Zhenguan court with a lamp that never quite goes out, not lit for show, but lit for those who come after, so they know a golden age was also argued into being.
Before we close, let us return to the opening loop. At the start I said Wei Zheng died and Taizong lost a mirror.
The mirror was gone, but the book remains. Jing wove together Taizong with Wei Zheng, with Fang and Du, with a circle of ministers because he feared later readers would think a golden age rested on one man. It rested on a set, daring remonstrance, employing the worthy, light corvée, cautious punishment, plus an emperor willing to be shown his face again and again. Lying in bed tonight, you don't need to aim to become emperor.
Take away one thing: the greater the power, the more you must leave room for opposition, the smoother the road, the more you must ask, if the water turns, is my boat still there?
If you are awake, leave a comment. Who around you would you most want to speak truth like Wei Zheng, or would you rather be someone who thinks one step further like Fang Xuanling, or someone who dares to decide like Ruhui?
One word is enough.
Subscribe and the notification bell can wait until tomorrow morning. If you often come to Bedside Book Voice, you know we keep walking slowly through the classics.
Next time we may linger in Tang Wind a little longer, or turn to another dynasty's story of governing.
We'll meet again in the pages.
The night is deep. Put what you heard into a dream, or into the minute before work tomorrow. No memorizing, no exam. If you remember the word mirror, tonight was worth it.
If you wake tomorrow remembering only that Taizong said water carries the boat, or only that Wei Zheng once stopped the hunting horse, that is enough. A book don't need to be finished in one night.
One thought that stays with you one day means the listening was not wasted.
This is Bedside Book Voice.
Good night, see you in the pages.